I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. With us once again, Rob Kirby of Kirby Analytics. Rob Kirby, thank you for joining us today from Canada.
My pleasure to be with you, Greg.
Oh, I got to start off with yesterday's speech with Netanyahu. Standing ovations, I don't know, 40 of them. Some of the Democrats didn't show up, about 50. But, if he wanted to show the world he has at least the support of Congress, he got that message out. What do you think about this speech? I mean, it looks to me like that was almost a declaration of war, whether America helps Israel or not.
I share the sentiment that you just expressed, Greg, but you know what? At the end of the day, I think what it all boils down to, the whole talk about Israel and Iran, in my view, is a sideshow. Just as what's going on in the Ukraine, Greg, I view to be another sideshow. Just as I view the imposition of all the measures to create a police state in America is another sideshow. Because the underlying root problem is that our financial system is failing, and history tells us that when the financial system and the financial edifice tanks, governments take us to war. And that's why we're on a war footing, and that's why we're hearing this rhetoric and these inflamed talks about how we need war and how war is imminent and how war is going to be unavoidable. That's my view of it. It's an age-old tested thing. When the financial system craps, the elites take us to war. End of story.
And what I got out of Netanyahu's speech, and I don't want to get into the Jews are bad, the Iranians are bad, but what I got out of it is that one way or the other, and Iran has also said it was going to, a few months ago, the Israelis bombed kill a general. The Iran said that they were going to directly attack Israel, which was a new wrinkle. But what I get out of the whole scenario is that it's going to be sooner than later. They're not talking about 2016 or 2018 or 2020. They're talking about probably this year.
Well, and the reason for that, Greg, is because the financial system is showing signs of severe stress and severe weakness. In that the money printing around the world has accelerated and has gone basically into a warp drive or a warp speed of money and credit creation. We've got the European Central Bank talking about their own QE programs. We've got Japan printing money like blazes, and we've got listen. I think it was David Stockman who said that there's over $2 trillion worth of sovereign debt in the euro system right now trading at negative interest rates. This is not sustainable, Greg. This is why we've got the burners turned up on the march to war, because the system is showing severe signs of systemic stress. Because you can't have $2 trillion worth of sovereign debt trading at negative interest rates for a long time and have it be sustainable. So it all boils back to the money. And it all boils back to the notion, Greg, that we don't have honest money. Because when you have honest money, these excesses don't occur. Things cleanse themselves. And that's the virtue or the merit of, the old relic, the gold standard, because it's honest commerce. And when you have honest commerce, generally people are peaceful and get along with each other, and trade's conducted on a very fair basis, equal value for equal value in exchange of goods. Not one country with the God-given right to print money and to buy the world's output with freshly created out of thin air fiat money. It's dishonest commerce. Dishonest commerce is at the root of all the problems that we're facing in the world. And you can't get away from it because everything circles back to it.
I had Gregory Mannarino on, and he says, this is going to be the biggest thing ever. I mean, it's going to be rioting in every country on earth if this thing, when this thing blows up. He says it will blow up. Do they have the war before the rioting starts? Is that what you're thinking, the timing? What is the timing of this? Does it blow up and then we have war? Or are they going to try to have war before it blows up? And then when it blows up, they say, oh, look, it's this war. It's the evil whoever that did this. I mean, is that their, what's the timing of the chicken and the egg? Do we get the war Or do we get the collapse? Or do we get the war and then the collapse, or the collapse and then the war?
My gut tells me, Greg, they're going to incite or create the basis for a war, and then they will blame the crack-up on the war. Because these Keynesian-minded people that are controlling our financial world, they refuse to accept the notion that Keynesianism is a failed concept. And creating money out of thin air and creating, fiat money created out of thin air with compound interest is mathematically a failed concept. By its very nature, it ends with a crack-up, basically with a crack-up boom. You look at the math that's involved in fiat money with compound interest. The life cycle of that system shows that money is created in its early life, it's created at a rate that's slow and gradual upward to the right, and at some point it inflects and it grows vertically. We're on the vertical part of the curve now. Things that go straight up are not sustainable. Your common sense should tell you that things that grow vertically are not sustainable.
And this is why you said, I don't know, not the last interview, maybe the interview before that, you said, I think the dollar's going to go supernova. You think it's, and sure enough, it's getting stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And you say it's not going to just come down, it's just going to poof. It's just going to go off like a big firework up in the sky.
I absolutely believe that is in the end. What we will experience at some point, and I believe this is a mathematical certainty, we will have a crack-up boom. There will be a hyperinflation, and that is in the cards, and that outcome is guaranteed. It's a sealed fate. And what is the workout to this? I mean, the workout to this, no matter what you do, there's going to be pain. But maybe we can avoid a war if cooler heads prevail, and if the laws of math are adhered to, and if the laws of economics are suddenly, we start adhering to laws of economics. What is occurring right now in the world, Greg, is economics. All the fundamentals in economics have been stood on their head. Interest rates have been forced to zero. Inflation is present in the system. It's not being reported. The unemployment rate in the United States of America, if you measure it the same way it was measured in 1980, is more than 20% right now. But we're being told it's 6 and change. We're told that inflation, we're told that deflation is the biggest concern. And if you just try to reconcile that statement with John Williams' work, who's reverse engineered all of the inflation data, we know that we have positive rates of inflation. They're solidly 5 to 7% anyway. So inflation isn't the real bogeyman that we're being told it is. Just like, Greg, the real issues and the real problems confronting humanity isn't Israel and Iran. That is a sideshow. Just like deflation is a sideshow. Just like the myth of a 6 and change percent unemployment rate is a sideshow. It's a lie. It's not reality. The reality is, the problem is the money creation, and our financial system is sick as a dog. And this is what's being hidden from us, because this is the true problem in the world. This is the biggest issue confronting humanity right now.
I've had people come on and ask me just recently, should I buy a house? And my gut tells them not now. Unless you can go buy it and hold it outright. Unless you can completely get clear title to the house. Am I telling them right? Or what would you say when somebody says, should I buy a house right now? Because I think they're going to get much cheaper.
I think the potential somewhere down the road, if the system does crack up, is that banks could call a lot of their loans, and I think you could get caught in a real nasty situation unless you've got rates that are absolutely locked in, and unless you've got super secure income coming in. I don't believe in speculating in real estate right now. real estate prices are a function of zero interest rates. If you ever remove the zero interest rate part of that equation, the price of housing would collapse. But, as a caveat to that, Greg, and I've been stating this now for 7 or 8 years, they can't raise interest rates, and they're not going to raise interest rates. But when the system collapses, I don't know if you want to have that debt obligation if you're going to be highly levered in entering the real estate market. But if you happen to be in a position where you own lots of money and you want to own a principal residence, and if you can pay cash for it, why not?
You talk to millionaires and billionaires all the time. You have proprietary one-on-one analytics at Kirby Analytics. You secure tonnage of gold for people. What are your sources saying about what the timing is right now? What are they? What are their fears? What are they saying right now? I know you're on the phone with them all the time.
People whose opinions I respect the most, Greg, tell me that humanity is headed towards a meat grinder, and that's putting it very bluntly. And it doesn't make me happy to say it. I don't revel in saying it, but we are headed for some very, very difficult times. And the people that are in charge of and are maintaining the status quo of dishonest commerce in our world today, they are extremely committed to their program, and they have these are the people that I've referenced before. We call them the globalists. These people have contempt for humanity. These people are eugenicists at their core, and these people believe in mass. Or as a group, they believe that the world's population should be reduced from its current roughly 7 billion to around 500 million people, because that's what they refer to as being a sustainable model for the Earth going forward. So I don't share that view, but I do understand and I do accept the notion that the elites that are running the planet today, this is what they think about. This is what their writings are all about over the last 30, 40 years, and this is the path that they have chosen to take us down.
They put up the Georgia Guidestones, which are the Georgia Satanic Stones, as far as I'm concerned. They put up the Georgia Guidestones. They put it in granite. They said, "Hey, here's what we're going to do to you all."
But Greg, so much of what these people do is bathed in the occult. And it's Luciferian. It's very evil. It's very evil. There are people, there are people in the world, unfortunately, that have contempt for humanity and have evil thoughts. And burying your head in the sand and pretending it isn't so. And this is not a conspiracy theory. These happen to be conspiracy facts. And if people can't accept them as facts, well, then they need to give their head a shake, and they need to wake up. But some people are waking up. It'd be nice to see more people waking up at a quicker pace. But we try to get the message out. We don't control the mainstream press, Greg. We're in the alternative press, and we are getting traction, Greg. And the reason we know we're getting traction is because what they're now trying to do to the internet is they're trying to suppress and squelch voices like ours and to basically be able to shut us down. Because that's been the thrust, in the latest number of months. The big thrust of new legislation coming in America is about basically muzzling the internet.
How do you think they put this off for so long? They obviously have put this off. I mean, the numbers. And I talk to people all the time that handle big amounts of money, that talk to people who handle big amount of money, that move big amounts of money, and uniformly, people have been surprised at how long they have put this off. And are you surprised at how long they put it off? And are they doing it so they can buy time, or are they doing it to make it worse?
Well, no, they're literally kicking the can down the road. And the way things have been delayed, Greg, is with extreme amounts of things that we call derivatives, and derivatives are paper promises for things in the real world. And basically, by using these paper promises for things in the real world as it relates to interest rates. For instance, by applying interest rate derivative products in the real world, they can, and I do believe that completely it's the U.S. Treasury or the Exchange Stabilization Fund within the U.S. Treasury. They have the ability to make commercial banks captive buyers of absolutely any amount of debt that they want to issue. And that's what's been used to, force rates to zero and keep them at zero. And it's one type of derivative they use to control the short end of the interest rate curve, and it's another type of interest rate derivative they use to control the long end of the interest rate curve. But rest assured, they have control of the interest rate curve. They can keep short-term rates at zero or lower as long as they want, and they can create the artificial or stealth demand for long-term government bonds by applying interest rate swaps at the long end of the curve. And as long as banks are willing to work for nominal fiat gains, capital gains, this game can go on in the paper market and in the interest rate market forever. The Achilles heel of the financial system remains physical metal, because when people demand physical metal comes out of the earth at a finite rate, and the demand for physical metal is trumping the amount of physical metal coming out of the earth's crust, and the financial managers have tried to offset this or negate this by creating untold amounts of paper promises for gold and silver on exchanges like the COMEX and through the LBMA, the London Bullion Market Association, where contracts for gold that doesn't exist are routinely sold in stunning amounts.
Your sources, I've been trying to get a fix on when this ends. How does this end? How does this, you said in the past, several interviews back, that this ends when China doesn't get its gold. Are we getting to a point where people are just going to not start getting their gold?
I think we're very close. And you know what, Greg? It is the exact timing of when somebody doesn't get what they think they're due and they blow the whistle on the system. You see, at the end of the day, China is getting physical metal, because even if they're not getting the amount they maybe want or would like to procure, they still are procuring physical precious metal at a fast and furious pace. And so to a point, this whole process playing out for longer than a lot of people thought it could or would doesn't really hurt them so long as they continue to receive a supply. A lot of supply that goes into these hands, Greg, comes from Africa. And isn't it interesting that you're seeing a lot of hotspots sort of brew up in Africa over the last number of months? Because all this potentially serves to let's just say cause disruptions of supply of physical stuff to people that want physical stuff, namely China. And I don't think it's by coincidence that the United States in the last couple of years anyway, have shown a newer and bigger interest to being involved in a military sense or logistical sense in different countries in Africa. So that's all tied into the big picture too. But
the big picture is we just have dishonest money, and the system is unraveling.
Yes, and it's unraveling. The pace, Greg, the pace of the unraveling is quickening, and when something quickens at an increasingly fast pace, that just common sense wise, you should recognize that's unstable. And at some point, something tears, rips, or breaks. And when something tears, rips, or breaks, that'll be the day probably when the war starts. Because that will be the convenient thing to blame the tear in the space-time continuum of our financial edifice.
Rob Kirby, I know you have deep experience. Just wanted to bring that up about derivatives. So when you're talking about derivatives, people should be all ears. You have, you were an international derivatives broker for, I don't know, more than a decade, maybe
15 years.
15 years.
15
okay.
years.
So
yeah.
you have deep experience and know all about derivatives back into the 80s. So you were around when they were, hey, what's a derivative? Hey, you were there.
Well, you know what, Greg? The products they speak of, I worked as a broker directly for the guys who invented the product.
Yeah. So
they invented the product,
and they are dangerous.
Those products were incubated here in Toronto, largely, and by American banking institutions here in Canada. And I worked with the guys that created them. So, I understand. I understand that, you see, when these instruments were created, Greg, they weren't created to blow up the world. They were created. They were created, believe it or not, for holistic reasons. But what occurred along the path is that people realized that these things could be used to control, and because they weren't conceived as a means to control. They were a hedge. They were
just a hedge.
They were conceived to be a useful financial product, but the powers that be realized that used in a certain way that they could effectively, you see, prior to these instruments being around, Greg, regulators maybe could legislate short-term interest rates, but they didn't really have control of the long end of the interest rate curve, and that part of the curve was always said to be controlled by the bond market. Well, these instruments have effectively given regulators, or the people that run the system, it's effectively given them control of the bond market. They have control of the long end of the interest rate curve, and it's when they realized that they could do this, that's when the amounts and the amounts of notionals of these products began to absolutely mushroom and go geometric, because they realized they could get a handle on it. But that's also, Greg, the exact reason why the biggest derivatives book on the planet was here in Toronto at Citibank Canada Toronto. And when they realized the power of these instruments, the Citibank Canada Toronto derivatives book was repatriated back to New York, because the people in New York they were the ones that basically cottoned on to the idea that these things, apart from having utility and apart from being good gambling and ways to play the interest rate curve and mimic what goes on in the cash market, they can also be used to control the long end of the bond curve. And you don't want something that powerful, a tool that powerful, to be sitting in a foreign land and being controlled in a foreign land. That's why it was repatriated back to New York. And that's why New York became the epicenter for these products traded international.
And when it blows up, it's going to wipe out wealth. It's going to wipe out pensions. It's going to wipe out 401ks. It's going to just clear the slate. Am I wrong?
I do believe that will occur. I think it's a given that will occur. And what it's going to do is it's going to decimate what we know as sovereign debt. It's going to decimate it. Somewhere down the road, Greg, we're either going to have a big war that's going to make everything irrelevant, or we're going to have a debt jubilee, because the money that's being printed and issued, and at the rate it's being printed and issued, it ultimately will fall to its real intrinsic value, which is zero. And the implications of that are a crack-up boom or a hyperinflation, not the deflation that some people are prognosticating about and talking about. You can't defile and destroy something or create infinite amounts of something, Greg, and have its value increase. And the deflation story, that's what it says. And that doesn't happen under the current circumstance of what's occurring in the real world. So, it's a real bugger if you don't have money and you need money, and and it's a real bugger if you have to sell your house, and maybe to you it seems deflationary if the price of something is dropping, but with the amount of money being created, Greg, we don't have a deflationary problem. We have a problem of too much money being created, and that is inflationary. Inflation is a measure of the money, the supply of money, not retail prices. And we have money printing occurring, at breakneck pace.
Rob Kirby, Kirby Analytics, thank you for a little addendum on derivatives and why it's such an important quotient in the Crackup boom. Rob Kirby, Kirby Analytics, thank you for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Pleasure being with you, Greg.